This is a video. It's just one problem, but it's quite lengthy, and you're going to see one like this on your unit test. So let's use the properties that we have learned about triangles to solve this. The first thing that it's asking us to do is give the interior angle measures of triangle HEC. Well, I have a highlighted triangle HEC on this diagram. And then they've given us a bunch of information. First, they tell us that line segment or side GC is perpendicular to side AC in the diagram. So if you look, that means that I have a right angle right down there on angle GCA. So that's a 90-degree angle there. And then they tell us that side AB is perpendicular to side BC. So that means there is also a right angle up in on angle 4. That's a 90-degree angle. And then they are telling us that side AB is parallel to side DE. So I'm going to make those markings on my diagram to show that those are parallel. Well, when I know that lines are parallel, I know I've got a lot of angles, like corresponding angles, that are congruent. So I'm looking at this diagram, and I can see that angle 4, which is a 90-degree angle, would have to be congruent to angle DHC because it's corresponding angles. I would also know that angle A has to equal angle 1 because those are corresponding angles. Then, so I'm going to go ahead and mark up my diagram with that. Also, a triangle DEC is an isosceles triangle with a base of DC. So, I know in isosceles triangles that base angles are congruent. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that the base angles here on my diagram, which would be HDC and ECD, are congruent. And then it tells us the triangle ABC is congruent to triangle FCG. Well, we need congruent. We know that congruent means that all sides are congruent and all angles are congruent. So corresponding parts are congruent. So looking at these two great big triangles, ABC and CGE, I'm going to mark, I know that angle A has to be congruent to angle 2. Oh, that's not the one I marked first. Let's go back. I know that angle G has to be congruent to angle ACB. So I'm going to mark that G is congruent to ACB. And then I know that angle A has to be congruent to angle 2. And I already know the third angles because they're already marked as right triangles, or right angles, sorry. And then the last thing that they have given me is that angle A equals 50 degrees. So I'm going to mark that on my diagram. Now I'm going to change ink color, and everything we're going to do from here is based on the given information that they have provided. Okay, so I know that angle A is 50 degrees. Well, I've marked on my diagram that equals angle 1 as well, so it's 50 degrees, and it has to equal angle 2 as well because I've marked that. So all three of those angles are 50 degrees. Also, I know that angle 1 is congruent to angle FCE, so it is 50 degrees. Now, I'm going to draw this complicated angle C as a little inset here because we're going to be doing some work on this, and I need to have it a little bit bigger. Okay, looking at triangle ABC with angle 3 as our C, I know that I know that angle A and angle B are 90 and 50, and I know by the triangle sum theorem that angle A plus angle B, which is 90 plus 50, and the measure of angle C has to equal 180 degrees. So I know that angle 3, doing the math, is 40 degrees. So I'm going to mark that on my diagram. Now, let's look at our inset. If I know that angle 3 is 40 degrees, I'm going to replace that in my little inset diagram. And I know that angle ECF is 50 degrees. Well, if I subtract 40 from 50, I'm going to get 10. And that will give me the measure of angle ECH, which is one of the interior angles of my shaded triangle. So I'm going to write that on there, and I'm going to put that in my answer. Now let's look at, and I've circled, angle, the two angles formed by H. And we know that one is a 90-degree angle, so the other, because it forms a linear pair, also has to be a 90-degree angle. So I know that angle EHC has to be a 90-degree angle. And then, by the triangle sum theorem, I can add up 90 and 10 and get 100 and subtract that from 180 and know that the measure of angle HEC must be 80 degrees. Okay, so this was kind of a complex problem, but like I said, you're going to see one of these on your unit test, so I wanted to kind of walk you through the steps on how to do this.